What's going on, people? Welcome to the opposition preview. I'm joined by Pete from the Loaded Mag to look ahead to the game on the weekend. International break is over. And of course, I had to bring Pete on here as usual. If you want to have your say, make sure to leave down your thoughts in the comment section down below. Like, subscribe, and check out the Loaded Mag NUFC, where I'll be on there giving my perspective on the game as a Palace fan as well. Pete, welcome to the show. I know we've had you on a few times already, but of course, times are changing with Newcastle. I mean, beating PSG now. Last season was talking about the top four. Now you're actually there, living the Champions League hype as well. So what have you made of the season, Pete? I mean, as a Newcastle fan, you must be thinking, waking up every day thinking, is this actually real? Like, are we in the Champions League beating these sides and, trying to fight for another top four position? How is it?
First of all, welcome back to the channel. I appreciate you inviting me, man. Always love to be on here with yourself. Brilliant channel, and love to chat to you. But look, you're absolutely right. I do kind of wake up and think to myself, like, how the hell are we in this position? Because it weren't long ago that we had Mike Ashley, we were fighting for relegation. If we got to 40 points, we were literally partying and dancing. But we're here. And the takeovers allowed us to bring in Eddie Howe and bring through the sort of players that we have, and it's down to Eddie Howe the reason why we're in this position right now. There's no doubt about it. And look, we're in this season playing Champions League football, and like it's been 20 years. I never thought we'd be in this position again. Certainly not this quickly. But I'm just loving every minute. I'm not going to lie. And it's in terms of the season, D, it's been a bit of an indifferent one. So we had the fantastic start where we smashed Villa 5-1 first game of the season, and we're thinking, right, we're back where we were last season, loving life, you know what I mean? And then we had Man City, Liverpool, and Brighton, and it kind of sort of brought us back down to earth again because they were through really tough games in like sort of back to back, and it made us kind of reevaluate where we are as a team, and that's a good thing, by the way, because sometimes you can get overconfident and expect too much, but it kind of brought us back down to earth, particularly that Brighton game, because the other two games, Man City, we didn't quite do enough. With Liverpool, we had the game and we threw it away ourselves, and then Brighton, we just weren't good enough. So we had the international break to revamp. We've come back since and had 7 games unbeaten, including, as you mentioned, about the Champions League. That PSG game was probably, I was at the game, it was probably the best game I've ever been at in terms of atmosphere, in terms of performance, everything. In the 30 years I've supported the club, it was unbelievable. We were very, very unlucky, 89th minute equaliser, to not beat West Ham at their place. And they've been talked about as having a great season. And we're only a couple of points behind them. So it's not been, like weighing it all up, it's not been the worst start because we've had to juggle so much. We're still in all 4 competitions. We're in a good position in all 4 competitions. We're 8th in the Premier League, top of the Champions League group, which is just unbelievable to talk about. We're top of the Champions League, where you got PSG, Dortmund, and AC Milan in there. We're top of the Champions League group. We're 8th in the Premier League. We're in the next round of the Cup. Yes, we have to go to Old Trafford, but hey, you boys did it. So
trust me, you can do it. Trust me, it's doable.
There you go. And obviously the FA Cup's in January. So we're still in everything, and we're having to juggle so much. And I'm sure we'll talk about injuries and all the rest of it, but we've had to juggle a lot of things as well to maintain the position that we're in, and we've done it. So I can't help but think that if you're gonna do it on the old school grading, I've got to say it's like a B+ in terms of this season so far. Like I'm really happy with where we're at right now.
Yeah, exactly. I find it funny you say B+ because I know what you mean because where you are in the league. But if Palace was in the top of the Champions League group or PSG, all them teams, and saying A, not too far off, that's like a A++. That's dreamland. But that's what I want to talk about, Pete, though, because has expectations now change due to what happened last season? Now you're in the Champions League this season. Because I'll be honest, at the start of the season, there was a few murmurs, especially from the media. I'm not too sure about Newcastle fans. That's why I want your perspective about Eddie Howe. I mean, is there pressure on him? because of, as you mentioned, some of the games such as that Brighton and a few other games up until the international break. And I was a bit like, wait a minute. I mean, Newcastle were fighting relegation about 2 seasons ago, and now they're in the Champions League under Eddie Howe. How is he under pressure after like 4 or 5 games? But do you think, as a fan, that has changed now? Or do you think as soon as you don't get results, you look at the manager, or do you still have faith in Eddie Howe to lead you all the way?
Bro, I've got 100% faith in my manager. There's no doubt about it. There is no question marks. Like, you're absolutely right in what you said, though. There were question marks being asked, but it wasn't of the Newcastle United fans. It was of the media. It was, in particular, the national media. They're trying to pressurize the team in some way, shape, or form. We've had 18 months, nearly 2 years now, of no real pressure on Newcastle United. People just enjoying the ride, no real pockets to pick from us. But then all of a sudden we had those 3 defeats, and then all of a sudden the national journalists saw it as like kind of like prey to kind of jump on. And the one thing that we wanted as the fan base is to stand firm. We still believe in our manager. We still believe in Eddie Howe. We know he's the guy to take us forward. There was not even a flinch from the board or anything at Newcastle, and rightly so. He hasn't done anything wrong. There are 3 tough games that we lost, but we've hit back in 7 unbeaten, including, a point away AC Milan at the San Siro, destroying PSG at St. James's Park. Like, he has, if anything, solidified his stance as Newcastle manager in what he's done in the last 7 games rather than the 3 previous to that. So, like, there's always going to be that question mark. Like you see with these teams at the top, there's always going to be that pressure that if they're not winning games, they need to be out. But the one thing this club has maintained is that we back our manager and we support him. And that's the most important thing. The media can write whatever they want, but as long as the fans are backing the manager and they believe in what he's trying to build and develop, then he ain't going anywhere.
Yeah, and there was like talks about now about their potential England job as well. I don't know if you'd want to leave Newcastle to go to England. I wouldn't want to do that. Yeah, because I mean, you're in the Champions League with Newcastle. You started this project and you want to try, ideally, at the end of it, win something. Maybe it might not be the Champions League. Maybe that might come too soon, especially this season. But you want, even if that's like a Carabao Cup or the FA Cup, you was very close to it last season. And I'll be honest, Pete, I mean, looking at Eddie Howe in the past, at Bournemouth, I think he done a fantastic job. But towards the end of it, and they did get relegated, it got a bit too predictable. And I heard from Bournemouth fans that, he didn't really have a plan B or so. But the one thing that, and I had question marks when he first joined Newcastle, because I was thinking, yes, it's great right now, but when things go sour, can he actually bounce back? But the one thing that has changed as a manager, which I respect Eddie Howe a lot, is he learned a lot from other managers across Europe before taking the Newcastle job. He had a little break. And I feel like you can see even through the hard times, as the media was putting pressure on him, he stood tall and he bounced back, and now you're 7 games unbeaten. I mean, that shows a manager that's developed. So, look, I think he's an improved manager from the Bournemouth period. And even then, he was a good manager, but maybe he could have had a plan B at times. And maybe Bournemouth versus Newcastle, it might have been the resources available to him. He couldn't do it. But now he's improved. But do you think he could get you that trophy, though? Do you think he could get you that, I don't know what trophy you'd be happy with, if any? Would you be happy with Carabao Cup, FA Cup? Do you think he could be the man to still deliver silverware?
Honestly, D, I take any trophy that came this way, because let's face it, and I love to get your opinions on this. Like, you look at all the trophies that are available now: the Carabao Cup, the FA Cup, the Premier League, and then any European trophies that are available. They're so hard they're so sought after now. They're so hard to attain now because you've got so many teams that are fighting for all these competitions, like even like the Liverpools and the Arsenals and the Man Uniteds that are fighting over a Carabao Cup now because it's any opportunity to win a trophy. So it's harder now than ever before because a lot of these teams would discard that trophy because they wanted the big one. Now the big one's so hard to attain because Man City is so good. Everyone's fighting for the next one down, the next rung down. So it makes it harder. So I take any trophy. We haven't lifted a trophy since the 60s. A major trophy. We've had the championship, but it's not quite the same. a major trophy. We've not had to. I'd take any trophy. Carabao Cup will be celebrated like we won the Premier League in Newcastle because it's how long we've not won it, and it's about confidence. You win that trophy, and it bigs you. It bigs you up. It gives you that confidence to think, you know what, next season we can go for something bigger.
Yeah, I want more.
Go for
I want more. It gets you hungry.
Yeah.
As a Palace fan, I can't really talk because we don't win many trophies and we haven't won it.
Close, though.
Yeah,
you were close on the Pardew, and we were.
Yeah.
Obviously, we've got that Pardew link as well. But you were very, very close. You won up against Man United, and
yeah,
looking
you just
like
want
you
to
were
go
going to
Wembley
win the
again.
trophy.
Yeah,
so you weren't that far away, man. You know what I mean?
So do you think he'll get you that trophy, even if it's not this season?
If you're asking me the question, yeah, 100%. I do think he's the guy that could potentially get us that first trophy that could kick us on. I'm not saying he's going to be here for 15, 20 years. I'm not saying that. I'd love it to be the case. But I think he is the guy that could win us the trophy, that could really start this kind of movement off, because I think he's good enough to do it. You mentioned about Bournemouth. You know, he had a bit of a stale period in Bournemouth, but that was down to lack of funds. That was down to a very aging squad, and it didn't work. But at Newcastle, like you said, and you're absolutely right, he went to Atletico Madrid under Simeone. He went to Juventus under Maurizio Sarri. He went to Klopp under Liverpool and spent time with them in his downtime after leaving Bournemouth to rehone his skills. And he's come back and implemented all of that into Newcastle. And we can't thank him enough because he's now made those changes. And it's the little things that he's done. So he's let players go like your John Joe Shelby's, like your Chris Woods at the right time when they weren't really getting any football. Your Kieran Clarks, your Isaac Haydens have all moved on, that was stalwarts of a Rafa Benitez, Steve Bruce squad. And then you've got question marks over like Lascelles. Paul Dummett in the summer got a new contract. You're thinking, like, why are they getting new contracts? Like,
yeah. Why are they getting new contracts? Yeah.
But then you see Paul Dummett and Jamal Lascelles playing centre back against a fully strong Man City team in the Carabao Cup, and we win and we get a clean sheet. And you think he clearly knows more than we do because he's done that. He's made that decision to keep them at the club. They're clearly offering something, and they're still doing something for the club. Matt Ritchie, for example, barely kicked the ball, but Eddie Howe continually talks about what he influences in the changing rooms, the conversations that he has with players. So he's not doing it on the pitch, but he's still having a massive influence in the club. And I can't commend like Eddie Howe any more than what I am, because he has looked at every individual player and thought, what does he bring to this squad? And he has manipulated that squad perfectly. Like, he has done so well. I can't hold him in high regard. Like, he's been absolutely superb. And you know what? Fair play to him.
100% fair play to him, because he's learned. I mean, as you said, he took time away from managing, and I think a manager like Vieira, funny enough, I think it would have suited him better, because right now I think he's over in France, and I don't think the fans are happy with him again, and he seems like he's repeating similar mistakes. I feel like sometimes as managers, you can have egos, but I mean, if you're learning from the greats, and Klopp, he's achieved that top level. Simeone, talking about managers who won like the Champions League, you'll naturally improve your game. You'll pick up one or two things, and I think Eddie Howe has done that. So yeah, I think it's been great.
I wanted to ask you that. Like, what do you make of that? Like, obviously you had Vieira, and I know you were a fan of Vieira when he was at the club, and like, obviously gutted to see him leave. And you've got like Roy Hodgson at the club now. Like, you're seeing Vieira doing what he's doing in France and like not doing a great job there and all the rest of it. Like, would you take him back over Roy Hodgson? Like, how are you feeling about that situation?
Not
I'm back on you now.
Yeah, I would have taken back over Roy Hodgson. But saying that, I mean, last season when we did face you on the Vieira, in the League Cup game, you only beat us by penalty, so we managed to give you a clean sheet. In the league game, same at your ground, it was 0-0 again. So he did manage to get results, but I don't know what that situation is in France.
We should have won that though.
I remember now, exactly. But he still managed to, get the results. I know you could say we could have won that, but yeah, look, for me, I said it when he left Palace, it's probably the right moment for him to go learn from others, develop his skills. I think what Eddie Howe's done, I looked at that and I thought maybe that would be great for Vieira, because I think he's got a philosophy there. He knows the ideas, but you just need to have a plan B. And at times, what made the biggest question mark for me is how much he relied on his assistant. You can rely on your assistant. I mean, look at Eddie Howe. I mean, he's got very good connection with his assistant. But as a manager, I know that Eddie Howe's making decisions. With Vieira, after what came out, it seemed like Arjen Roberts, the assistant, was kind of making some of the key decisions, which is not really great for a manager. So I felt like he just had to go learn, and he decided to go back into management. That's his thing. And we're doing well with Hodgson right now, with context and injuries. But what do you make of Palace this season, Pete? Because I'll be honest, I've been very surprised by us due to everything involved together. We lost Zaha. At least he hasn't played a single minute. Zaha's replacement hasn't played. We've had injuries left, right, centre. I mean, they only got worse. The international break is probably the best moment for us because thankfully I haven't heard anyone else get injured during the time. In fact, we're hearing more positive news. But for Palace, for you, have you been surprised that we're sitting ninth after 8 games?
I'm not going to lie. We know Dan Potts really well on the Talk Man channel, and I was on there, and he asked me the question. He said, who's been your kind of biggest surprise this season in a positive way? And I did say Crystal Palace. I've been really impressed with them. I think ninth in the table right now.
Yeah, only 3 points from seven. Yeah.
And I believe Chelsea in the league. You guys, and I'm sure you might mention it, you've had a horrendous injury record. You touched on it before with some of the players you've had out. And to have that injury record and to still not only be in the top half of the table, but go to places like Old Trafford and win. And I watched that game. I watched the whole 90 minutes of that game. You guys were good and you defended well and you deserved 110% that victory, that 3 points. And to go to places like that and get results with the injury record that you've got, with some of the players that you brought or kind of were leaning on in terms of important players not being available, having lost the likes of Wilfried Zaha, who's been your main sort of talisman over so many years, it's like you can't help but commend the job that's been done at Crystal Palace. So I've been really impressed with you guys. I think you've got one of the best defensive records in the Premier League as well.
Yeah, Jeremy Arsenal top right now.
There you go. So you got some fantastic defenders. Well organized team, which you have had for many a year now. Your defensive record has always been pretty decent. So big respect for you guys, 110%. And I think a lot of people are sleeping on you guys for how good a season you've had so far, considering the predicament you've been in. So it's a fair play.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's as Palace fans, we're pretty much looking forward to having a full squad and then see what this squad can achieve. Because I mean, if we're saying ninth right now, it's good, but we haven't even played 10 games yet. But it's been, as you said, when you add the context into it, getting results at Old Trafford after losing 3-0, by the way. Look, we lost to them 3-0 in the Carabao Cup. We had a rotated squad. It was a horrendous game to watch, I'll be honest. To bounce back from that just shows that the players still have respect for Hodgson. And I think Hodgson has done, a very good job defensively as well. But we do know it's just for this season. But hopefully, Carabao Cup was a disappointment. I would have expected us to do a bit more, especially try to go for it. Because as you said, you want to go for a trophy. You want to have that hope. But that's gone. We can't cry about it anymore. And we just have to see what we can do in the league. But in terms of players to look out for, Pete, who should watch out for? For me, Isaac is absolutely fantastic. But you got other, stars on the team so far this season as well. If you had to pick point one that Palace need to stop in order to get a result, who would it be?
There's question marks about Isaac. He's out of the international team. I think he picked up a groin injury against West Ham. I think he'll be available, but there's only one man for me that you need to be wary of, and it's Anthony Gordon. And a few Palace fans may be a few Palace fans may be thinking, what? Like Wilson, Isaac, Gomes, all these players. Anthony Gordon, for me, alongside maybe Kieran Trippier, is probably the player of the season. Anthony Gordon as a left winger, rapid, full of pace, full of trickery. I think he's got 4 or 5 goal contributions this season. He has been an absolute thorn in so many team sides. If you watched him against Liverpool, if you watched him against Sheffield United, if you watched him against I believe Brentford. Like you've got so many teams against Villa, for example. He's caused so many teams problems this season. He was suspended against West Ham, which we were really gutted about because he's such an influential player, but he's back now. And I think he's going to be firing on all cylinders. When we signed him for 45 million, a lot of opposition fans kind of like laughed at it because he barely kicked a ball for Everton. But people don't realise that he barely kicked a ball for Everton because he'd already shown his desire in the summer previous that he wanted to join Newcastle. And so therefore, Everton barely played him. And so when he came to Newcastle, he barely kicked a ball. So he was so unfit. So it literally took him 6 months to play for us and for Eddie Howe to get his fitness up, that it actually benefited him in the under-23s Euros in the summer, which he got player of the tournament and they won the tournament. And then he came back to Newcastle in pre-season fit and firing. He was ready to go. And he's took that into this season. He's been an absolute dynamite. So for me, that he's the one guy that I would say look out for him because he missed the West Ham game. So with the international break, he'll be ready to absolutely rumble, especially at St. James's Park.
It's hard for me to say. I think we don't know if Joe Wood. That's the thing. We have so many injuries. I don't know who's going to be back. We've heard positive news about Matheus France, so he might be potentially be ready for his debut. I don't know if Roy would start him. I think that would be a bit ambitious. But if we have no other players, then he might have to start him. But hopefully, one or two more players might come back from injury. I think Elise is a bit too soon for him in this game. So that might be for the Tottenham game on Friday night, following the Saturday. So yeah, I mean, if he's going to be on form and if he's going to be, going down the left-hand side, that is scary because I think that is our weaker side. If he was down the right, then you face Mitchell, but he's either going to face Nathaniel Klein or Joe Wood. And Joe Wood is better than Nathaniel Klein, and Joe Wood is injured right now. But even then, like, he's had flaws this season as well. He's had mistakes in him. So that's one battle that I'm not looking forward because as a Palace fan, it's a bit scary. But it will also be interesting to see what we do to try to combat him. But yeah, look, you've got some great players. I do think that. What about for you? Like, I guess I wouldn't be surprised if we say our defense, because I mean I don't know who's going to be fit. Even if you ask me as a Palace fan, who should we be worried about in the Newcastle game? I'll say, well, tell me who's fit. I mean, Roy Hodgson had to get a paper out and write down players' names because the list was growing so much, so you don't forget who he has for training. So for you, Pete, I guess to help you out, are you worried about our defense, especially what happened last season with the 0-0s, to try to break it down? Or is it different Newcastle side this season that, you got that 8-0 against Sheffield United, so you got goals in you. So do you think you'll be able to break it down now?
You know what? There's a couple of things I want to talk about here, but like it will start with the defense because obviously last season you got the clean sheet, and to be fair, other than the Tyron Mitchell situation, you deserved it because we didn't do enough. We'd scored the goal and it should have been counted by VAR, but it wasn't. But other than that, you guys defended really, really well. So it's a fair play with regards to that. However, I've been on Loaded Mag NUFC, and I've talked about on our channel the fact that we are more equipped this season to deal with the low block, and we've handled the low block by far better. You look at Sheffield United, for example, they had a low block, and we ended up putting 8 past them at their own place. So I think that we've been able to handle and deal with that situation better, which fills me with confidence going into teams like yourselves. We had the same with Bournemouth last season. We had the same with Leeds last season, and we really struggled with that low block. But I think we've got a team that's built to deal with that a little bit differently. What I will add to that, and there's been a lot of speculation with a couple of yours, in fact your centre-back pairing.
You've been. I mean, looking down south. Let's just say that you've been looking at the defense. Thinking, damn, you lot keep a clean sheets. They're playing well. Let's see if we can grab them. Now we've got the money.
I'm not going to lie, from a Newcastle perspective and the journalist up in the northeast, it's clear that we want a right-sided centre-back. It's really, really clear that we want to improve that area of the team. And Fabian Shaw has been sensational for us, but he's 32 years old, and we need to kind of move and develop and we kind of build the squad off the back of that. And we've been linked with Jean-Claire Todibo at Nice, who's a fantastic centre-back in the French squad, only 22 years old. But we've also been heavily linked with Anderson and probably more important, Mark Gay, who's obviously been playing for England, who I would prefer out of the three to be in this Newcastle team.
Gay's so underrated at times.
He's a quality.
Yeah,
they're both quality centre backs. Let's not get it twisted. Like those guys, you've got a fantastic centre back pairing. There's no doubt about it. And that for me is the biggest thing. If we can get beyond those guys, I do think we've got a goal or two in us to win this game. But it's about getting past that defensive pairing because they're so solid. And look, you guys are joint with Arsenal in terms of defensive like consolations in terms of goals. But so for me, they're the guys that we need to get past if we're going to win this game. And it'll be really interesting to see how these guys get on at St. James's Park under the lights, 3 p.m. kickoff.
Yeah, under the lights after 3 p.m. kickoff. That's how you know winter's coming. That's how you know we're here.
You got to remember we're north, so everything gets started quicker.
Exactly.
Everything gets started quicker.
It's always grey now. It's always grey up there. And also for the away fans, I mean, we have to travel like Mount Everest to go and watch a game. It's probably I'll probably get a better view sitting at home watching the game than being all the way up there. The players look like ants up there, but
by 4 o'clock you'll see the stars, mate. By 4 o'clock,
exactly. And it's so cold as well, especially in October. You know, it's gonna be freezing up there. But you know, you mentioned these defenders and trying to break them down, Pete, and you know, you're doing well with the low block. So let's have your score prediction. Like, do you think this time around you will get the job done? Do you think you will beat Palace? Surely, with 7 games unbeaten, being able to beat the low block, you will have to back your boy to get a job done this time around, right? Because you're sitting 8th, which isn't bad, but you've had one or two dodgy results already, and you don't want to fall behind as well. I guess Palace at home. If I was a Newcastle fan, I'm looking at that game thinking we have to try to win this game.
Yeah, I do. If we want to be in the position we were last season, we finished 4th last season. 5th can potentially get you Champions League this season with the coefficient and all the rest of it. If we want to be in that position, certainly the top 5, okay, push it out to top 6. We have to win games. We have to win games. With all due respect, we have to beat teams at home. Most teams, if not all teams, at home, and we've lost to Liverpool this season, but we have to beat our teams at home. And when Palace come to town, like many others, we should expect to a point that we beat these teams. So yeah, I'm going to back Newcastle United. I am. Like we've had our own injury problems, just like you have. That we've had Joe Willock that's not even done pre-season. It's been out since the Brighton game back in May. He's still not fit, but he'll be very, very close to this game on Saturday. We've got Joe Linton that's back. We've got Sven Botman that's back, which is massive. Like they're big players for us. Callum Wilson came on and played the last 5 minutes or so in the West Ham game, but he's fully fit now. So we've got players that are back playing alongside the likes of Isaac, and we've got Anthony Gordon that's back from suspension. Fingers crossed there's no injury kind of issues that we have on international break. So we've got a really good team to pick from. Obviously, Harvey Barnes is not back until 2024 because of his injury. He got broken foot.
Yeah.
But I look at those players and I think there's more than enough in that Newcastle squad that should get the job done, particularly.
Well, the hurt Palace as well. We don't know what attack. I don't think Eze is going to play. Well, I don't think Eze is going to be out. I mean, we don't really have that many creative options, and we saw it against Forest as well at home. I mean, there's only so much you can do.
I wanted to touch on this because Mateus Franco, he was a player that we thought we would sign. We were linked with him for about 8 months, and we thought because Chelsea weren't going to get him that we were the second in command, and we had, I think, a 17.5 million bid rejected in January. January just gone for Mateus Franco, and we thought in the summer we'd kind of reevaluate it and pick him up. And so I was surprised personally. And we talked about the Loaded Mag NUFC about the fact that you guys picked him up the way in which you did, and I think fair play. The fact that you picked him up because he looks a promising attacking midfielder. Like he looks a promising player.
19. He's only 19.
Yeah.
We haven't seen him play yet because he came to us with an injury. But I mean, he should be hopefully in and around the squad, of course, because he hasn't played games. And we're talking about Hodgson tax. I don't know if he'll put him out straight away because I guess he wants to see him a bit, build a few minutes. But even if he's coming off the bench, like we do need that because we don't have any creative players. And I guess what a time it will be for him to prove himself. He's even got a clause. It's funny, but he's even got a clause in his in the deal that if he's nominated for the Ballon d'Or, they get an extra, I think, 5 million euros if he's nominated. Like that's how much they rate it, Flamingo, that they put a Ballon d'Or clause for him. So I mean, we might have got a Zaha replacement on half, or it might always be injury prone. I guess time will tell. But yeah, we're excited. We are excited by him. He's a young flair player. Dougie Friedman, our sporting director, really wanted him. He even traveled to Brazil to speak to him and watch him play. And he highly rated him, and he just got the job done. The finance involved was about 20 plus 5 million in add-ons, and I think there's another 5 million for like Ballon d'Or clause. So it's about 30 million package in total potentially. That's it. I mean, if a player gets nominated for Ballon d'Or, I don't care if he paid 30 million. That 30 million, it will be nothing. So yeah, I think it's a good deal, but very ambitious for a club like Palace because we don't like to spend big, and we spend big money on 19-year-old. So we got high hopes for him clearly, and we don't spend that money for him to sit on the bench.
There's a potential you could get double for him if he has a good season for you.
I mean,
let's say he's fit, and then he has a really good season for you. Like you know for a fact that whether it's next summer or after that, the teams are going to be looking at him because he's only 19. He'll be 20 by then, going into next summer. Like you guys can demand crazy fees.
That's what we want to do, though.
People will pay it. People pay it.
I mean, that's what we've done with Elise, 8 million. I mean, right now, if you saw Elise sign a new deal, it'll be more than like 50 million. That's it. Gehi, he won't go for cheap as well. We were making profit on all these players if we want to sell them right now. Francois is a higher risk investment because you're paying 20 million, but I mean, if it does pay off, you could get double that. It could easily get double that.
What do you think Gabe will go for now? If a team
you was laughing at me. You was laughing at me with with everyone else on the 12-man podcast, but I still stick by it. Palace, unless we haven't replacement lined up, Palace would not want to let Gehi go for cheap. I mean, he's only getting more expensive. Well, I guess he's solidifying himself for that price tag because he's now getting selected for England. But he won't go for. I just don't see a scenario of Gehi going for any less than 60 million. Like it'll be more than that. Like
60.
I don't see it. I just don't see Gehi going for any less. Like that's not Palace. I mean, when we saw Wan-Bissaka, we saw them for 50 million. We didn't want to sell Zaha for so long. There was interest from Tottenham and all these other clubs. But I guess unless there's a gentleman's agreement there but Gehi seems happy at Palace. We were looking at Gehi as our future captain as well, like potentially. So, I mean, yes, Newcastle, that would be exciting, of course, Champions League football. But if a Champions League club wants to come for him, especially a club like Newcastle or any other club, then you have to pay Champions League kind of money because I think he is that quality player. I don't think he'll go for cheap. I mean, how much do you think he's worth, honestly? 40? 30?
Yeah, I would say anywhere between 40 and 50. I think that would be a fair deal because he's in the England team. I just, how much does he pay for him for Chelsea?
Probably like 20.
That's what I mean. Like double your price, maybe double.
We can triple it. Why double it when you can triple it? Not everyone's got that Newcastle money, bro. We need that money. We need that every pound,
We're the same. Like we've just signed Bruno Guimaraes to a new contract. We've given him 110 million release clause for like the bastards and the way out.
There's no way.
So again, we're not going to sell it. We're not going to sell our players for cheap. So like, why should you? But I do think like if we came in with like a 50 million bid, that I do think that genuinely be a consideration there. Like,
yeah, maybe 50 million. It sounds good, but I just don't know. As a Palace fan, and you know what, Palace fans will probably slate me for even saying 60 million. Some of them just see him as 80 million up straight. They use the other text like Maguire and stuff. Like, you think I'm bad, like, but minimum. I'm saying minimum 60 million. Like, I just don't see a situation of 50. Like, you're talking about, you got the English tax. He's young, and Pete. of course, you have watched Palace. I know you watched, a few games, but he's so complete as a defender. It's unreal. It's unreal. Saying that, he's probably going to make a mistake in this game and give away a goal.
I hope so, man.
Everything. He's physically strong. He's fast. Even against Forest, he dribbled past 3-4 midfielders and joined the attack. Like, he can do everything as a defender. Like, 50 million in today's market, of an inflated market, just seems too cheap for Gueye. Too cheap. If he goes for 50 million, then other players should be going for considerably less. Like, it's just, I mean, I think Maguire just ruined the market, and now everyone else to pay the price. Everyone now has to pay the price.
True.
But look, Pete, we're gonna wrap it up. But before we do, just quickly, your score prediction. You didn't say it.
Score prediction. Look, I'm going to back my boys. You know this, D. I'm always going to back my boys.
You have to, man. I'll back it as well if I was you. You have to.
Yeah, I'm going to say a Newcastle United win. I'm going to say it's going to be a 2-0 win to Newcastle.
2-0 Newcastle win. Okay, let us know your thoughts in the comment section down below. How do you see this game going? If you're a Toon fan or a Palace fan as well. For me, I want to say 0-0. I want to say 0-0. And I'll be very happy with that, with the injuries that we got. I mean, getting a point away from her in Newcastle, 0-0. And of course, you're above us at the table. I don't want you to create that gap, of course. So yeah, you know what? I'm going to go for 0-0. At Forest, I said 1-0, but it's still a draw. This one, I just want Palace to defend for their lives. I just want us to get the point and move on. One game done, one game closer to Eze, Elise, and all the other players. That's all that matters. Newcastle, we're not really expecting to win, but I mean, if we do win, geez, I mean, as a neutrals, that would be incredible. That would be genuinely incredible. I said against United as well, and we managed to get the job done, but Newcastle will be way harder. So I'm going to go for 0-0. Pete is saying 2-0 Newcastle. Let us know what you think. Thank you to Pete for joining me. Make sure to check out Loaded Mag NUFC. I'll be on there giving my perspective on Thursday night. So if you're watching this a bit earlier, I might not be there yet. Just wait for the time to happen. I'm pretty sure it'll be a live stream. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe, your thoughts in the comment section down below. And until next time, up the Palace.